is on business vitality in the district. Central Brooklyn has hundreds of small businesses and burgeoning entrepreneurs. What resources and strategies would you implement to further assist small businesses, including those already in business improvement districts and merchants associations? And we will go back to Reverend Tiller.
I think that's about the fourth one that you went to me first. That's all right. That's okay. Again, as I have stated earlier, it's not rocket science. When my grandfather came to the city from Yazoo City, Mississippi, he was an uneducated man. He could not go to a corporation and get a job. He was an unskilled worker. He could not even go to an auto plant and get a job. But he didn't start selling drugs, and he had to feed his family. And so he worked pushing a push cart, saving his monies, and eventually he was able to open up a fruit stand and a food market, and then a barbecue restaurant. And my aunt had the tavern, my great aunt had the tavern next door. In other words, what I'm saying is that we have 150,000 residents in our district. We have consumers. We have people that need goods and services. Every one of us has to go to a supermarket. Every one of us has to go to a dry cleaners. Every one of us needs toilet paper and other paper goods, soap. And so what we have to do is begin to have a realistic conversation. This is not unique to Bedford-Stuyvesant. All over the country, African Americans have high unemployment. We've got to learn to do for self. And when we begin to provide some of these basic, fundamental services in our own community, that's one of the things that I greatly admire about the Caribbean American community. And you saw it, you see it a lot in immigrants who've come from the South, and you see it from people who've been here a long time. People who said, I'm not going to wait for a job, I'm going to make a job, and as a city council person, I will use discretionary funds to provide training, and more training to encourage and build an entrepreneurial class. It's not rocket science, it's quite simple. There are people who come to this country. Every one of us in Brooklyn love Kum Kao Chinese food. And when you go down to Kum Kao, I'm quite sure there are people that just got here, don't have degrees, don't even speak English, are completely incapable of going into the mainstream job market and getting a job. But they're back there in that kitchen working because somebody built a business, they went to work, and they pooled their resources until they could do better. We need a city council person that will trumpet that message. I will do that. I have done that in the past. One of the greatest examples in our community of entrepreneurial spirit has come from our religious institutions. We had to provide everything for the community, building schools and also building jobs and encouraging small business. And that's what I believe is the solution that will help
Thank you,
change the landscape.
Reverend Tiller. Mr. Cornegy.
Before you start the clock, I'm gonna need to hear the question again.
The question was about small business. What resources and strategies would you implement to further assist small businesses, including those already in business improvement districts and merchant associations?
I'm going to refer back to my initial answer, which was the small business incubator that would provide access to capital as well as access to technical assistance. But I will point out that currently I work hand in hand with Kenneth over at Bridge Street, trying to find a way to monetize the fact that we have now become one of the top tourist destinations in the city, here in Brooklyn and in Bedford-Stuyvesant. So characteristically, communities that find themselves in a situation where they have new resources, meaning that as new people who are moving into an area, do one or two things. Either they succumb to the barrage of new people, or they find a way to monetize that. And I'm proud to say that we sit at the precipice of finding a way to monetize the fact that we are classified now, if you read all of the magazines, which sometimes are a little disturbing, we are one of the top tourist destinations. And if you look on any given day at the subway stops or any major thoroughfare in this district, you can see that there are people who are here visiting and enjoying the beauty of Bedford-Stuyvesant. We have not quite capitalized or monetized that opportunity. And I believe that once we get our small businesses to understand that there is value in monetizing the situation that we're in, and provide them with either with a chamber here in Bedford-Stuyvesant that deals directly with the new burgeoning tourist market that's here, our businesses can benefit from that. And I think that that's one of the things that we have to be innovative. We have to be innovative in looking at retail diversity. We can't have a Chinese restaurant, a hair salon, and a liquor store on every block. We have to be able to look at retail diversity and what's best, and begin to grow the capacity for small business to hire. And I think we do that through a small business incubator, which is, again, provides access to capital. And then I want to refer also to the Community Reinvestment Act, which provides funding for lending that's covered by the federal government, which we have to begin to put pressure on those state and federal chartered banks that are not lending at the rate that they're mandated to do through the Community Reinvestment Act. And I will continue to do that with my co-chair, the Honorable Lynette Robinson, who was the chair of banking I mentioned before. We have that dialogue about what we're going to do to put pressure on those banks to make sure that they're lending at the rate that they told the federal government that they should, and they are not.
Thank you, Mr. Cornegy. Mr. Foy.
Thank you. A point of clarification, Section 3 does two things. It does what Mr. Sweeney said, but it also mandates that all contracts that originate out of NYCHA to service NYCHA must be first offered to NYCHA residents. That's what Section 3 mandates. It mandates that NYCHA prepare residents and train them on how to run a business. That's what Section 3 mandates. Section 3 can help us to build our burgeoning small business base. It would allow for small minority and women-owned businesses to begin to grow and to expand. Our city is anemic in terms of contracting minority and women-owned businesses. We're in the single digits in terms of our percentages. So we need to do more, we need to do better to up the billions of dollars that we spend on an annual basis in procurement and in other services that are contracted by the city. We need a target of minority and women-owned businesses that we want to include in that contracting and procurement process. We also need to develop our own community development fund that is capitalized off of money that is taken out of the community and given to large companies as subsidies. If we create a community development fund, it will help to close the capital gap that currently exists. Banks are going to loan, but they can't be forced to loan to businesses. There are many businesses right now who are phenomenally successful and can't get a microloan from a business. And there's nothing that we can do to force banks to do that. But if the community is empowered through its own development fund, that is money that is leveraged out of the community, we can begin to deal and close that capital gap that small businesses do not currently have access to. We also need to talk about developing our labor force. If we are going to have a burgeoning economy, local economy, or municipal economy, we have to have a labor force that is prepared. We have to reintroduce vocational training. We have to do things like I've been doing with the Bed-Stuy Volunteer Ambulance Corps as the Chief of Community Affairs, going out and finding our most vulnerable young men and women who are not theoretically employable and training them on how to be emergency medical technicians, giving them a skill that they can carry forward for the rest of their lives. So it's about also investing in proven programs that transform lives and provide real opportunities for not just education, but also application of the education that they've received, and reintegration of many of our most disenfranchised individuals back into the labor force.
Thank you, Mr. Foy. Mr. Sweeney.
Okay, are you talking about the businesses that are based in this district that overcharges our residents for food, fruit, that sell us, sometimes my BlackBerry went to buy a battery, sold me a bootleg battery, now I got 3 phones after that? I want to help these businesses.